Good morning. Well, it's still morning here in Utah. Afternoon to everybody else who's back east. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm here today to talk about the US 89 project that we're currently under construction. This past January, we issued NTP on a $380 million construction contract. And this project will convert Highway 89 into a freeway. It's about a 9-mile segment. This includes the construction of 4 new interchanges, 2 new grade separated crossings, new surface street connections to get to the interchange locations, as well as adding an additional lane of travel in each direction. Some of the constraints that we have along the corridors, we have active fault lines that cross in multiple locations. And we're predicting vertical displacements up to 15 feet. And the nice thing about it is they happen all of our structure locations. So a couple of combinations you really don't like to have is fault lines and bridges on top of each other. We do have some BOR aqueducts in the area. We have a petroleum line that moves 80,000 barrels of oil to a local refinery. We've got a 78-inch aqueduct that serves water to about 750,000 people along the Wasatch Front. And in addition to that, we have all these traditional utilities you see in a job like this. So the corridor is about 10 miles long. We have about 150 miles of utilities that we have to relocate. So it just kind of tells you how many utilities we have in there. In addition to the technical challenges, we did have budgetary constraints based on what we saw from the environmental estimate. Highway 89 is located in an area with a very active community who have concerns about how this new facility is going to fit within their neighborhoods. And in addition to that, the project had litigation filed against it after the environmental document was done. And so as we're deciding to move from the environmental state to the project delivery phase, we sat down with UDOT's alternative delivery group and other DOT personnel to evaluate the different delivery methods we had available. And we looked at the pros and the cons and the opportunities that we had with each delivery method and how they fit the job that we currently have. And going through that assessment, we really ended up settling on progressive design build. Okay. So as Kat was saying earlier today, we're using a qualification-based selection. We really look to partner with the design builder to help us develop the process. Matt kind of walked through what we do from a qualification-based selection standpoint. We use the same process for the progressive design build as we did for the CMGC delivery. We have 2 distinct contracting phases. We have the pre-construction phase, which is done through our consultant services group, and we have the construction phase that is done through our contracting group. And UDOT's final contract structure, when we first walked into the job, we didn't know if it was going to mirror what you see with the CMGC, where we take it and we develop it to 100% plans with unit prices, or if it's going to reflect more what we see with our design build templates. And we settled on the design build template. And this really gave us the flexibility of being able to go out and advertise the job anywhere between 30 and 90% design and take advantage of a couple of different tools. One, can we get the litigation resolved and get the project out earlier? If we were able to get the scope of the project defined, we had opportunities to move it up a little bit quicker. So why did we use PDB? It was really selected because it gave the department the opportunity to make the decisions during the scoping phase based on input and feedback from the design builder. It gave us real data to work with and analyze how we move forward. It also allowed us to optimize the design through design builder-led innovations, bringing the design builder on right from the very get-go, right after that environmental, is we were working with a fresh slate and moving forward as we went along with the project. And also, it gave us a collaborative way to look at risk allocation, how to best resolve them in the project. If we could mitigate the risks, we did everything we could to mitigate them. But if we couldn't, who's the best person to manage that risk? Or we did use some provisional items as well that allowed us to come up with a reconciled unit price that if we encounter something during construction, we know what it's going to cost. And we've already gone through and had that discussion with the contractor. So with this being UDOT's first progressive design build project, we really didn't have any sort of preconceived notion about what the process was going to look like. This is a little bit different than what Kat showed earlier, we went right from environmental through design, and we did all of our scoping in with that. We had our contractor help us develop during the scope and project development phase. They did a lot of the scoping work up front. This was partly due to the fact that we brought our contractor on board before we bought the program management group. The other part is the simple fact that the contractor had 100 designers working for them, and we're able to progress through different options related to scope. They're able to provide us pricing information so we can make the right decision as we move forward. And then the reinvestment and scope adjustment period, it really gave us the ability to go in, finalize the design, look at the contract development as well. Once we settled on the design build delivery method, we had to modify our template to fit with what we were trying to do in the US89 project, as well as look at construction phasing and MOT scheme development. It also gave us the ability to look at and evaluate cost and schedule impacts related to contract requirements or limitations that we put in. So I was on the wrong screen. I apologize. So this chart here shows the typical roles that you see in a large-scale project like US89. We have our program management group, we have our design builder, we have our independent cost estimator that helps us provide validation for the pricing. And on this project, we used a 5% margin that the contractor had to be within the ice. Some of the things I would like to point out is we did have a change in responsibility than what you see over a traditional design build job. So our design builder helped us develop a lot of the scoping that we did and ended up being in the final scope of the job, while the program manager acted in that supporting role. The design builder helped provide information or acted in a supporting role to provide information for the contract. If we look at our right-of-way, we had about 200 pieces of property that we still needed to acquire when the contract was let. The contractor was able to help us prioritize what was more important for their schedule and their approach to the job to help us minimize that risk. They also provided exhibits that we needed or third-party coordination through the design build process. It really helped us reduce risk overall. And it really, having the design builder provide this input up front, it helped the department evaluate what we wanted to do and how we wanted to approach it. And it really gave us full control of what went into the contract based on actual data. Okay. So this here shows some of the possibilities for accelerated delivery for design build versus progressive design build. And these are just a sample of projects we pulled across the state. We've got anywhere from $120 million up to over $500 million in the West Davis corridor. The blue phase here shows the typical pre-construction or program management phase. This is getting the RFP ready, doing your baseline design, and getting it out for advertising. We have our typical procurement phase, and then you start your design. And what we found with the way that we approached the US89 project is we brought the contractor on first, the design builder on first. We started right into the scoping, into the design, and then we brought the program manager on board. And what that did is it allowed us to get the design progressing. We're able to go out and get that early engineering data, the geotech, traffic counts, all the hard data information that we need to make the decisions on the job. We're able to collect that and gather that up front. We went out, we brought our program manager on board after the design builder. And one of the things that we did learn is that we want to do that as close together as possible, because with the rate we progressed on the job, there was a little bit of catch up, and there's only about a 2-month difference between when the program manager came on board and when the contractor came on board, but that provided some lag between the two. And what this 16 months here represents is the date that the design builder had NTP to start and design through NTP for construction. That includes design work for $380 million worth of work. We got to about 60% design for the majority of the items, and that also includes the contract development stage. So why did we end up with looking at PDB? Why was this a real big consideration? Is When we talked to the director of the department, one of his biggest concerns with this project is making sure that we had community acceptance. Like I mentioned earlier, it's a highly active community. They're not afraid to pick up the phone, call local representatives if they have concerns about how we're approaching things. And in the environmental process, you know, we had Highway 89 going up and over all of the cross streets. And that was one of the biggest concerns that we heard back about was the profile changes. How is this going to fit within our neighborhood? After we brought the design builder on board, we were able to go in and start evaluating these different options. And what we found is that we were able to, at an overall cost savings to the project, we're able to take the cross streets over Highway 89 at all 6 locations. Now, if this would have been a more traditional delivery method on a design build side, I'm not sure we would have ended up with that. We probably would have had 3 cross streets going over and 3 cross streets going under, because that was the overall cheapest solution. And we went with a little bit more of a value-based selection for the profile of Highway 89. So really, we're able to focus on optimization from design 1. Having the design builder involved from the start of the design allowed us to tailor the design based on the construction means and methods. It helped us reduce the size of TCEs needed to build the job, and it gave the department a better understanding of impacts associated with contract limitations, and allowed the project team to make more informed decisions. The collaborative nature of the design build process, it gave them the design builder a forum for them to challenge the department on preferences and expand upon new techniques to provide a direct benefit to the project. On US 89, we swapped out bonded wearing course, which is a region preference, for a dense graded HMA used in other parts of the state to provide the required durability and provide an overall cost savings for the pavement section. You know, with the petroleum line running along the corridor, the project team needed to step outside the comfort zone to come up with creative solutions at the structure locations, whether it was adding structure length to provide a buffer away from the petroleum line, switching foundation types from driven piles to drilled shafts, or the use of anchor wall abutments, which had never been used in the state before. We're able to work together to find the correct solution at each location, and it gave us the time to do the work and the homework needed to make the right decision. So here's an example of one of the interchange locations. This is Oak Hills interchange. This, what's shown up here, is based on the environmental study. I'm not sure if you can see my cursor or not, but in this area, we had a box culvert that was going to be placed to provide access to Layton City's trail system right in here. We had stringent BOR requirements over their 78-inch aqueduct here. We had a Forest Service trailhead access, and we had our petroleum line right in here. After we brought the design builder on board, we started looking at it. You know, this is the after condition. You know, with Highway 89 going under the cross street, we're able to take the fill material from the excavation, place it in here to build the detention pond that we need for our storm drain system. We're able to improve the access for the Layton City trailhead and eliminate the need for a box culvert to provide that crossing. We're able to move the frontage road to the west. Using lightweight materials, we're able to reduce the loading over the pipeline and provide meet the BOR's requirements of what needed to happen there. And we also came back in and decided to construct a trailhead parking and a park and ride facility so we can get access to the trailhead. The progressive design build model, and this is a state-funded project. There are no federal funds involved with this. And because of all of the upfront work we did in the pre-construction phase, we decided to take a little bit different approach to the quality. The PDB process allowed us to streamline our construction quality organization structure through a blended contractor-owner team. It allows the department to oversee all testing and inspection activities and validation, as well as directing and approving all staffing decisions. It provides a contractor a voice in the quality process through the establishment of an integrated quality management group. And it really helps reduce the us versus them mentality to more of a team approach. It allows the team to use either owner or contractor quality testing in the acceptance decisions, thereby eliminating the overlap of assurance and acceptance activities. And for our quality management staff, this is about a 10% cost savings that we saw. And it also allows us to accommodate quick adjustments to testing and inspection staff levels, or to add training based on established performance metrics and project needs. And on this last note, a couple months ago, we had to switch out some personnel on the department side from the quality staffing group. And having this quality structure in place is we've really been able to carry on and meet all of our inspection and testing needs without really skipping a beat. And so it's been a benefit to the job. And some of the lessons learned, and this kind of goes back to what Kat was saying this morning, is if we would have had a better defined scope and other related design criteria, we could have progressed faster than what we did. A PDB team led by the design builder can accelerate project design and development quicker than we traditionally see through the pre-construction project development practices. And the design builder can provide guidance to the designers on which concepts are worth exploring and which ones aren't. Based on their background, if they have, design build experience, or if they have CMGC experience, they can really help guide and direct the designers in a quicker manner. And they might say, progress it to this level and I can make a decision at this point. Or, maybe we need to take a little bit longer, and help provide that guidance back to the designers. The estimate for the environmental studies and the litigation filed against the project really tied our hands to start with. We didn't know what was going to happen through the court system, or when we'd actually be able to get out and start the job. We needed to have a better understanding of what the scope we defined in the environmental study was actually going to cost. And so we were able to use this process to help us make the right decisions. As I mentioned earlier, we brought the program manager on a little bit late, and if we could bring them on closer to the same time we brought the design builder, it really would help with that partnering and that teaming, and eliminate any sort of seniority status within the job. And we must recognize that the way we approach the job, this is a DB style price proposal, which requires a different approach and a different level of resources compared to what you traditionally see with an ICE under a CMGC delivery. We had 60% plans, and so our design builders who have experience estimating these types of jobs and these types of plans felt more comfortable, while our ICE took a little bit more time to build the comfort level to estimate the job the way they thought it should be estimated. So some of the lessons learned and some of the added value is the early packages. We have a lot of vegetation that has to be removed along the corridor. We have to work around the migratory bird windows. We were able to put out an early package to start some of the tree removal to take us outside of that window and eliminate the risk associated with migratory birds. For our geotechnical investigations, we're able to help the team focus on design solutions that work within the context and constraints of the corridor. We're able to focus on where we really needed the information instead of just picking up information that wasn't necessarily needed. From an MOT standpoint, we were able to go out and come up with feasible solutions related to highway impacts. It really came down to instead of setting performance metrics, we were able to look at the impacts, the time, and the cost associated with those impacts. During the price evaluation, our ICE came up with a concept to do 3 intersection closures concurrently, and it would have saved us a substantial amount of time on the schedule, about 3 months. But once we started looking at the impacts and the surrounding infrastructure, the impacts to the surrounding infrastructure, we were able to make a decision that it wasn't the right thing to do from a project standpoint, because it just overloaded adjacent facilities and they weren't able to handle the traffic volume that we needed. Our construction quality management plan, we were able to address that during the pre-construction phase as well. So we had that reviewed and approved and sitting on the shelf ready to go, just waiting for the contract to be awarded. It also gave us the ability to utilize existing materials. This was a very unbalanced job to start with, and adjusting the profiles, we were able to get the job more balanced. We're actually able to take some of the materials that are excess on the job and export them to a different project in the state. So instead of that material becoming a contractor commodity, it was kept by the department and we are using it under the project. A couple more lessons learned is the unconstrained dialogue to explore innovative concepts. So with a traditional design build job, if you look at the ATC process, the department is very guarded in the conversations that they have with the contractors. One, to keep confidentiality with the individual contractors we're working with, and the other is to not give an unfair competitive advantage. And while it's the right thing to do, it can also hinder some of the responses that we get, or the compressed time frame doesn't allow all of the questions to be fully answered. So what we were able to do with the open dialogue between the contractor and the department is, you know, if I go back to the anchor wall abutments I mentioned earlier, you know, that's a solution that I'm not sure under a design build environment we would have accepted. Now, we could have looked at and explored it under the CMGC environment, but it took us about 6 months to work through that solution, to ask the right questions, to get the right answers, and figure out where our real concerns were at and how to address those concerns. There is some value of having the contractor alongside as well. You know, you go out and you speak to your local communities, the businesses, the residents. Having that design builder there with you does provide and bolster trust with these groups, and helps provide confidence in delivery as well. And the overall goal of this project was to serve the community, and this process really does allow for that. And so we're 5 months into construction. We have had some challenges associated with the global pandemic that's currently going on. We've been working through those with our partners, our contractors, and all of the upfront work that we did during the pre-construction phase really has come out and provided benefit to us. When we're facing some of these challenges, we haven't been able to get all of the permits secured as quickly as we were hoping for due to outside agencies, but our contractors have been able to work around and adjust workflows and do all of those things to help minimize those impacts. And so that upfront relationship building that we had done during the pre-construction phase really has gone on to pay dividends. And with that, we are still in the process, and so how everything turns out still remains to be seen, but we're really excited about using progressive design build on this project.
Excellent. Thank you, Michael. Any questions for Michael?
Well, I'll start a few, and then you can see if others got any questions. So, Michael, now I don't know if it's in your CMGC or you may do the same thing in progressive design build, is you allow a contractor who's not conflicted with the procurement to participate in the selection process. Is that the case on progressive design build also?
That is correct. Yes, we reach out to the AGC and they provide back a representative to help us in the selection process.
So, and so in your in your viewpoint, what's the benefit of it for the greater,
I think for me personally is having somebody who, understands some of the, Matt mentioned that we use approach to pricing, right, and having somebody that works with HCSS and those bid documents on a regular basis to look at and say, are they being transparent in what they're providing us? What additional reports, what additional information that they can provide? It helps in that aspect because we don't work in that world every day. And each contractor, depending on, whether they're earth movers, structure guys, they have a different emphasis on where they see risks. And having that expertise sitting down, going through the proposals with you, looking at the approach to the jobs, they can provide different perspectives on where they see some risk or are risks identified in that proposal valid or not.
Well, I guess the other aspect of it just helps at least confirm that people can feel like that, hey, the process was fair, right? If you have a one of your other brethren to sit on the committee, then they can vouch for whether it's really really fair process, so to speak.
Yeah, and I think,
sir, really quick, we also have
go ahead, Matt.
EC representative there as well. Sorry, Mike, I apologize. We have an EC representative as well.
Okay.
That's exactly one of the points, is to get that outside confirmation that the department isn't just picking their favorites, right? And we're not just selecting somebody that we really, really like. That this is a fair process, and we've gone through all the steps that we outlined, and this person was selected because they were the best value.
Right.
Yeah. And back to the process a little bit, Matt mentioned that we use Decision Lens to help us as part of our analysis. One of the things that we do is we will go in, we will look at the scores in a blinded fashion. We don't know who's making the scores. We'll look at the scores for any given section, and we'll compare that back to the strengths and weaknesses for that section to make sure that they match up. Is there something that's showing in a score that's not reflected in the strengths or weaknesses? And if so, what's the challenge with that? And it gives us direction to have conversations.
Right. And then how do you validate through the cost estimate? You have independent cost estimators, right? Who are they? And
yep. So we have in Utah, we have a couple different groups that provide independent cost estimate services. They are ex-contractors that are doing ground up or production-based cost estimates. We involve them in design team meetings. We involve them in quantity reconciliations. We involve them in the design process and ask them to provide input on innovation and approaches outside of what the contractor is doing. And through the entire process, they're involved to help us generate that. And on this project, we used a 5% envelope. Some typically use 10%. We had a concern about that if you look at the project value. And so we cut that number in half, and I think we ended up being within about 1.5 to 2% final bid lighting within the independent cost estimate.
So what happens if you're not within 5%? Do you off-ramp it? Or?
So what we had written in our RFP for the contractor selection is that if we were unable to come to agreed price, we had an off-ramp option that allowed us to keep the designer under contract and release the contractor. And in that scenario, we'd progress it to 100% design and put it out as a bid build job.
Okay. All right. Joe, you got any other questions for the?
If I could add something really quick, though, that's a very unique, what Mike just described there is very unique, because we built into a contract that we would be able to take a contractor's sub, in essence, their designer, and bring them on as us.
Right.
And we're representing the design for UDOT. That was kind of a unique, and it was a little bit of a tough way to get around that.
Right. Well, it helps you that you don't have to bring a new designer and and kind of start from ground level, right? So